Oh, now we're on. Okay. Yeah, meet with Dave. If you don't know when you might have free time or your team might have free time, just email me and we can arrange something. So I spent a lot of time, with those midterm evaluations on Saturday and yesterday, so I hope you appreciate them. But so how many teams got some really good comments on their presentation efforts? Okay, how many teams got some not so good comments or things you didn't agree with? Yeah, I know some people have. So this is an issue. If you have only one person evaluating you, you pretty much know what the story is. But if you have 35 people evaluating you and you look through all the comments, you might see a lot of different comments, some of which you might not agree with, some of which are positive, some of which might make you angry or whatever. So how do you make sense of all this? This is a real issue. So it's important to realize that everybody has a different way of looking at things, a different perspective on things, different way they might want to see a person present, or a different way they may want to see a person slides or whatever. So not everybody is right. So when you look at these things, you might think, what do I do? I have somebody saying to do it this way, or somebody saying to do it this way. You really have to look at all the comments in order to make sense out of them. Now, some of which you might have a comment that's really positive about something you did, and another comment about something that's really bad about the same thing. So maybe those two cancel out. Okay? What if you have two good comments on something and only one bad one? Well, maybe the good ones win out. But ultimately, you're going to have to be honest about what you did and see if their comment or suggestion really makes sense. Is it something that you can use in your final presentation to make it even better? Okay? Is it something that the person just didn't understand, or maybe you needed to present it in a different way in order to get the point across? In a lot of cases, people talk about a whole range of things with the same level of intonation, and so an important issue is not one that is apparent. So you might need to maybe make a special slide, a single slide with all your main points on them, the important points, and maybe the details, get buried in some other slides. But so if you have an important point or an objective or something, make that a slide by itself. That really gets the point across. Okay. Same for your midterm report. So I'm reviewing some of the reports with this pen right here, this red pen, which you'll see a lot of. And so, I look at it for readability and how it makes sense if you're missing items, or you are repetitive, or things like format, or misspellings and stuff like that. But, I'm just one person. I might not get everything right. You might not agree with me, but you should listen to what I say. I'm not gonna penalize you if you don't do everything I say, but you have to be honest with yourself and your team and your writing and stuff like that to use the stuff that you would think that would make your final report a much better report. Okay? Are there any questions about that? Yes, Lynn.
I still don't really understand how the ratings factor into the grade.
Okay. So the midterm report and presentation both account for 20%. Okay, your final report and presentation, I forgot the numbers now, but they're much more important. So you can think of the midterm stuff as being practice. To tell you the truth, I'm a pretty lenient grader. So, last year, not everybody got A's. I'll tell you that. One team got A pluses. Okay, so if you do good work, if you're and you really put an effort into it, you're most probably going to get an A. Okay, so I wouldn't worry about specifically the number or your placement or anything like that. So if your team is placed down a little bit, all that means to me is there's room for improvement. So I really look at if you improve from the midterm to the final. That makes is more meaningful to me than the absolute scores. Okay, how much effort you put into it, meeting with me, how much you've done, things like that make a lot more meaningful to me. Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, anything else? Okay, so Thursday is a big day for us, the class again. We're going to the Magical Bridge Playground. It's an accessible playground in Palo Alto, not too far from here. We're going to carpool there like we did with the other places. And we're going to see Olenka Villarreal. She's the founder of the Magical Bridge Playground. And she built it for her daughter who has developmental disability. She raised $4 million to do this. So that's very impressive. So we're going to hear from her. And then I'm going to put you I'm going to give you a task to do. I'm going to have you check out the accessibility of all the equipment there. Do you think you can handle that? Okay? So it'll be a lot of fun. So we got the carpool sign-up sheet over here, so be sure to sign up. Tell me if you're going alone, by yourself, so I know that you're going to be there. So here's how to get there. So basically you want to get onto Galvez, cross El Camino, become Embarcadero, make a right turn on Middlefield, and go down a few miles. I'll show you the map. So this is how you get there. It's on Middlefield just before Charleston. So if you're flying in, this is what you'll see. Here's the Magical Bridge Playground. We're going to come in this direction, and this is Adobe Creek. So just after going over Adobe Creek, you make a right turn and head out to this parking area over here. If that's full, there's some parking in front over here, okay? But we'll all be meeting by this gate right here, okay? And so this is what you'll see. You'll be coming from down here. You see the pavement turn from asphalt to concrete as you cross the Adobe Creek overpass. And you make a right turn in here and go all the way down to the end. There's the parking at the end. This is the Challenger School. There's additional parking here and in front of the school here, okay? So there should be enough parking, okay? Yeah, it'll be fun. And this is what it looked like. We're going to check this all out. It's going to be a lot of fun. So here's the parking area over here, just before the tennis courts. And here's the meeting area over here. Okay. So after the break, we're going to hear from Katie Strasser from Exobionics. And we're going to see some amazing state-of-the-art robotic stuff. So if you haven't signed up for a carpool, sign up to meet with me, or are missing an evaluation form, take time to come up now during the break. We'll see you in about 5 minutes.
Mostly adjusted, but show some of the adjustments. Transfer.
Katie.
Are we starting from center? So we can get a full walk and then turn around?
Yeah, we can do that.
Okay.
It's a rolling chair, so then it's starting.
Okay, perfect. David, what's the address here? What's the address here? Is it 110 Thornton Boulevard?
No, it's, the
Planet
classroom
Bridge?
is in the Thornton building, and it's classroom 110.
Okay.
But I don't know the street address.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
But have them go to Stanford Maps and look up
Yeah,
Thornton,
that's all.
Thornton Center. Forward and laser pointer.
Awesome.
Yep,
Great.
new batteries.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, let's get started. Our guest today is Katie Strausser, who holds a bachelor's degree from Carnegie Mellon and a master's and PhD from University of California, Berkeley. She was one of the three primary inventors of the EXO-1 device, which you'll see here. It's an electromechanical lower extremity exoskeleton. And she's currently a senior controls engineer at EXO and works on control algorithms and software that focus on the human-machine interface. So let's give Katie a warm welcome.
Thank you all. I'm really happy to be back here. I think this is my third time presenting to this class, and I really like it. And actually, this class inspired me to actually teach my own class at St. Mary's College this year. So hopefully more and more people will learn about rehab technology. So I'm here to talk to you today about EXO, about exoskeletons, about what it means to design a robot for rehabilitation use, why we build exos, all that jazz. And then at the end, which is what you guys are all really waiting for anyway, Fernanda is going to give us a demo and show you how this works and talk a little bit about her experience with EXO. But we'll do some of the academic stuff first, just so we can pretend it's class and everything like that. Okay, so what are we going to talk about? First of all, I'll talk about exoskeletons, why we build them, why we're here at all. And then we'll talk a little bit about the specifics of the design of the exoskeleton. Okay, so there's a lot that goes into designing the exoskeleton. This device that I'm going to show you today is our EXO GT. This is our second iteration that's out on the market. But we've been developing this specific exoskeleton for a number of years, and so there's a lot of design consideration that goes into that. So we'll discuss that a bit. Then, of course, demo and time for any of your questions. But if you have questions as I'm going, raise your hand and we can answer those, okay? Okay, so there's a lot of exoskeletons out on the market. Some of you guys, some of you may have seen some of them. This is a picture of Indigo, which is now by Parker Hannifin, which was originally developed at Vanderbilt. There's also, let's see if I can get a slide. Nope. There's other pictures that apparently I don't want to show. But we also have a device called ReWalk, which is another exoskeleton device that looks fairly similar. It's out of an Israeli company. We have Rex, which is a bigger exoskeleton that kind of is very stable, but still a bipedal motion machine, but doesn't fall over. It's very, very wide and stable. So there's a variety of devices out here. And normally when I talk about exoskeletons, these are the three that I'll talk about besides EXO: ReWalk, Indigo, and Rex. However, I just came back from a rehabilitation robotics conference, and let me tell you, the market of exoskeletons is absolutely exploding. There are so many more people who are getting into this field. And we build exoskeletons for a variety of reasons. Dr. Kazaruni's lab out of UC Berkeley, where I graduated from, has actually been developing a different exoskeleton since I left, and they are actually working on a low-cost option. And they recently won a really big prize in the UAE and are kind of developing their exo under the title SUIT-X. There's a number of other devices that people are using for helping the elderly, for assisting in lifting, for doing various types of rehab that are a little less full-featured, but also less costly than what we're doing. So the exoskeleton and what defines an exoskeleton and everything is ever-changing. And what I tell you this year will not be true next year or the year after, because this is just a really, really big growing field, which is great for all of you in this audience who are hoping to work on exoskeletons, because I think the number of companies that will be doing it and the number of opportunities is only growing, okay? So what I'm going to present to you today is mostly exo. So this is exo with this wonderful test pilot modeling it for you. And so I'm sharing with you my experiences of this device, but many of these things really translate across all of the devices. And as you look at pictures and see news stories and videos and stuff about all of these different exoskeletons, they should translate amongst all of these, okay? So who can use an exoskeleton? So one of the first things that we looked at was spinal cord injury. Okay, so we're talking about hemiparesis, or we're talking about paraplegia, low quadriplegia, complete or incomplete injuries. Okay, so people with either partial motion or no motion, no sensation left can use this device. That was kind of our first market, or the first thing we really started looking at. And a lot of the reason for that is with a complete spinal cord injury patient, you just move their legs, and it's great. And they walk, and that's all you need. Then we moved on to things like stroke and traumatic brain injury. So we're moving on to people that still have some residual motion and who want to use this device to help them make that motion better and to help rehab that to get a better gait. So now we're not just building a robot to move a person, we're building a robot to move with a person. And it turns out that's a lot more complicated, because getting a robot and a person to agree is a little harder than it looks, which is, but we've got something. We've got something in the works. So we also look at diagnoses like multiple sclerosis, cerebral palsy in some of our taller but still children, and a number of other diagnoses that basically present like a spinal cord injury or a stroke that we can allow them to continue moving. Exo right now and all of the other devices are available for use in the clinic primarily. There are a few devices that have clearance for home, either in the States or in Europe, but it depends upon the diagnosis and some specifics there. It's all a FDA regulatory thing that I'll get into, or won't. Okay, so why an exoskeleton? As you guys see, Fernanda has a really sweet, rad, red chair that gets her everywhere she wants to go. She's super stylish in it. So why would she want an exoskeleton? Well, it turns out that we can do gait training. So for somebody with some residual motion, residual strength, we can allow them to take repetitive steps that are proper but still varied enough to get good brain training and good motor training. We can provide varied assistance, so it's not just that the machine is constantly moving them in the same way. We can actually adjust how it's moving the leg and how it moves them through and across the ground. And we can do balance training. Exoskeletons allow us to support the entire body, so we can actually even just practice standing, learning where our center of balance is, learning how to shift from side to side, front to back. All of these things are fundamentally important for walking and for activities of daily living, but are very, very difficult if you have limited strength and limited control. So this device allows us to do all of those things. There's also a lot of other outcomes or benefits from exoskeletons, and I've put question marks after most of them because we're in the process of going through the research. And so while I can tell you that I have initial preliminary findings that show all these things, I don't have peer-reviewed journals, so I'm going to put question marks on them to just tell you we're still studying. But there's thoughts of bone density. So bone density is really important, right? Our body is really efficient. When we don't use our bones, the body's like, why am I burning energy taking care of these things? Let's just let them go. It'll be okay. Well, then we lead to fractures and all kinds of other issues. And so keeping up our bone density is really important. It's really important, especially for our spinal cord injury patients. And there's been a lot of research of how to maintain bone density. And one of the things that we found is that pure standing isn't enough. We used to just stand in standing frames and say, oh, we're weighting our bones. This is great. And now the research is like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe we need some more. So now the current hypothesis is the muscle and the pulling across the bone is really what's helping to strengthen that bone and tell the body that we're using it. And so walking then becomes important. Still working on that one, prove if that's true or not, but we really hope so. Bowel and bladder function. When I started studying robots in college, I never thought that I would be writing a paper to submit to a peer-reviewed journal about people pooping, but I am, and it's awesome. Turns out that bowel and bladder are one of those things that we really take for granted, okay? It's part of our daily life. We really need to do it. It's really good for our body, but when you're constantly sitting, the digestive system, the bowel, the bladder, they don't really always work quite like they should. And bladder infections and bowel infections are one of the leading expenses of chronic spinal cord injury and chronic wheelchair use. And one of the leading reasons of rehospitalization. And so by improving bowel and bladder function, by getting people up and walking and moving the body and having it upright in the way it's kind of framed and supposed to be, we can actually reduce bowel and bladder issues, which is fantastic, right? So I now study how frequently people poop, and it's great. So we're doing more and more research about that. Pain is also a really, really big thing for us. Many spinal cord injury patients suffer from neuropathic pain. Okay, so pain below the injury site, and it requires basically a lot of medications to basically go about their daily life due to this pain. Okay, the medications available that are strong enough to deal with the pain. How many people have had their wisdom teeth out and had to take some really strong pain meds, right? Like, you're super functional after that, right? Yeah, no, not so much. So people really don't want to take this medication all the time, nor do we really want to pay, and do insurance companies want to pay for this medication all the time. And basically, people's quality of life suffers. They are either medicated or in pain. No one wants that. So in some cases, we have been able to see a reduction in pain medication needed from our patients just by the fact that they're up and walking and moving those limbs the way that they're supposed to be moved. This isn't true for everybody. I have no idea why it's true for some people and why it's not true for others. If anyone wants to study that in your future careers, let me know. I'll definitely take your research results and use those. But we can help reduce some pain, and that's a really, really great outcome for improving the quality of life of our patients. Yes?
In general, how long are these patients walking around in the exoskeleton?
So that's a really great question. The patients that I'm studying right now that are kind of specific to some of these big outcomes, I'm studying patients who are walking about 4 days a week for the time span. I'm taking data every 3 months. So I'm seeing benefit over, benefit starts fairly early, but I'm still seeing benefit through a year or so. We have done less studies on people who are in the clinic and walking, maybe once a week or, something like that. But I have heard from some of my sites that they do see benefit even kind of after, just a weekly check-in type thing. But it's really patient dependent, and it depends upon their type of pain and things like that, so it's hard to tell. But I think our bigger benefit is in daily use. So, no. There's also a benefit of circulation. Pressure sores are another one of our really big concerns with, of course, anybody who's sitting constantly or laying for a long time. Pressure sores are a really big problem and cause rehospitalization, a lot of medical bills, et cetera, just like the bowel and bladder infections. So by improving circulation, we are able to help kind of that blood flow to these sites that may have pressure points, and thus we can either help heal or help prevent pressure sores, whichever one. One of our pilots always likes to tell me that she likes walking because after she walks, she no longer has cankles, because the circulation has allowed, the blood that would pool in her feet and her ankles to kind of get back to circulating. So that's a really great result. Again, for some people, not for everybody, but a definite benefit. And then I took the question mark off of this one because I've seen it enough times that I think it's true. There's just an emotional benefit from being up and walking. We see this in chronic spinal cord injury patients who are able to do things that they always wanted to do, but maybe weren't able to because of their injury. We see this a lot in acute spinal cord, acute stroke, especially acute stroke, patients who are new to motor disability and now are being given kind of a hope and a chance to try walking again and to either regain that function. It's got a really big impact on their emotional well-being and on their engagement in rehab. And so this is really important as we look at people's emotion and how that influences their ability to rehab and how they progress. This is a really big factor. Yeah, so these are some of the reasons why we use exoskeletons. I'm sure there's more. Hopefully we'll find more outcomes as we go. But these are kind of the primary ones. Okay. So can you buy these? Yes, you can. You can buy an exoskeleton on the market. Primarily, most of the devices are for sale in hospitals. Our newest model at Exobionics is the Exo GT, which I'll be showing you here today. It has a few more features than our Exo 1, and it's more of a gait trainer. The GT actually stands for gait training. So we added some things like variable assist and things like that that really help people train the gait more than just walk the person. One of the big hurdles, however, for us as an exoskeleton company, of course, is FDA clearance, okay? Medical devices for the FDA are ever-changing. They're all new. Exoskeletons are new, right? Exoskeletons, if I were here 5 years ago and talking about exoskeletons, I probably would have had to start with much more of a description of what an exoskeleton is. You guys have probably all seen something of the sort, right? So they're becoming more and more popular. To that end, within the last year or two, the FDA actually declared a class of devices called exoskeletons. Yay! Before we actually fell under exercise equipment. Which was actually great for us because it's actually a lower classification of device. But now the FDA is like, no, you guys are actually exoskeletons, so why don't you go ahead and get some clearance in that? So we are. And FDA clearance is delightful and fun to work towards. Basically, you have to provide a lot of evidence that your device works and is safe and does what it says it does and can work for the patients that you say it can work for. ReWalk was the first device to get FDA clearance in the States, and both Indigo and Exo are on their way, so hopefully we'll have clearance soon. Is there a question? Yeah.
Since the companies are kind of the forerunner of the design, who writes the standards for the FDA?
It's a really great question. It's actually pretty interesting. It's the first guys to get there, which is an interesting issue, right? Do you rush to be first so that you get to set the standard? I mean, you still have to convince the FDA that it's cool, right? But you kind of get a little more of well, we did these studies and we think they're right, so everyone should do these studies, right? But you have to do all this work of kind of teaching the FDA what this is and why it is. And so there's a balance in terms of business risk of if you try to go first or just try to be right on their tail. So we were right on ReWalk's tail, but they file their stuff, their documentation, and then there's what's called a de novo, which is kind of the, I guess, standard now for kind of, but it's for their approval. So we're actually kind of slightly different. And so some of the things are different. And you're still convincing the FDA that what you've done is sufficient and things like that. But at least we have something to go off of. So, yeah. It's an interesting process. It's different from drugs because it's not like you do a test and the drug either does what you says it does or not. This is more of a tool to use for rehab. And so how the therapists use it and everything also plays into it. So it's an art, more of an art than a science. So, yeah. Okay. And also as part of our FDA filing, and of course a part of getting adoption for exos into the market is that we have to do clinical trials. We have to do studies to show that everything that I showed here is a thing, right? And if I want to claim that in advertising and sales, marketing brochures, I have to be able to back that up with studies and facts. And so a lot of what the exoskeleton companies are trying to do right now is do all of these larger studies to show the benefits of exoskeletons and also to define what the studies need to be. So one of the big challenges is, with a drug, you say, okay, this drug cures cancer. I test it on cancer patients. Did it cure them? I'm sure it's not that simple, but you're looking at the effects of the drug, the side effects, things like that. With this, I'm kind of showing that it's safe, and I'm also trying to show that it gets them some benefit, and what is that benefit, and how do we measure it? And that might be different for every diagnosis. It might be different for different populations within those diagnoses. So designing the studies to show that exoskeletons are good and worthwhile is, in my opinion, kind of one of the most interesting things going on right now in exoskeletons, because it's a really interesting puzzle of how we get this information and how we work with the clinical community to define these studies and run them such that we get good results. Yeah. Any questions about any of the market, the background, why we're even bothering with this stuff? Yes?
You guys are profitable. What's your marketing plan?
Well, that's a good question. I just write software. So Exobionics is a publicly traded company. We are not yet cash flow positive. We actually have 3 business departments, I guess, within our company. We have Exo Medical, Exo Industrial, which is focusing on industrial exoskeletons, and Exo Labs, which does our researchy and more of our military and stuff like that, our government grants and stuff like that research. So between all of those 3 plus external investments, I still have a job. But because of FDA clearance and a lack of evidence from clinical studies and things like that, the medical side itself is not yet profitable. So, yeah.
Are there specific guidelines for what kinds of products and devices would need clinical trials?
Yes. It pretty much depends upon the classification of the FDA filing that you're doing. So there's different classifications based on what it is, and you can go on the FDA's website and look up what your product is, and it tells you what class of device it is, and that defines the process that you have to go through to be approved. So, yes, there are. Yes?
What does this sell for?
The MSRP is about $100K, I believe, right now. So we're still in low numbers. So
You know the makeup between the software versus the hardware of the exoskeleton?
in terms of cost. Hardware is always more expensive because we actually have to pay per, but we sell it as a package. So, but we have about the same size team on mechanical and software. But of course, our BOM cost on mechanical is a lot higher. So, yes.
It seems like a lot of the benefits come from like moving. Are there any devices? It seems like stationary would be easier than moving. Are there any like stationary bikes or like ellipticals that like do the moving for you but aren't walking across the floor?
Yeah, there are. So there's a lot of rehab bike type things out on the market. There's also kind of the one that always gets compared to exoskeletons is Locomat, which is a body weight support treadmill-based system that's still got the 2 legs and still does the walking motion, but it's over a treadmill. The big problems with Locomat is that they have a lot of difficulty with engagement. So people like being kind of engaged in the walking and the brain kind of connection to the walk, because the treadmill can slow down and speed up and stuff with your walk, but you're not going to ever like fall over or anything like that. And so they've had to do a lot more work on like games and virtual reality and screen stuff to keep engagement levels up to help with the that engagement. And then they unfortunately had a pretty big study done fairly early before they had their newest version of variable assist software, and it showed not a benefit over traditional treadmill training therapy. And so that definitely hurt them in the market. And I think that their new software has done better, but they've had a hard time kind of overcoming that. So the other problem is they're big, and they take up a lot of room in the rehab center, and there's definitely no real like prospect of ever taking that home. So you would never constantly use that because it's giant. So
Can I add on to that?
yeah.
I like that question because it does speak to the end user a bit. When you've lost your ability to walk or movement, what you really want to do as a user is cover distance. Is knowing that I have been able to step one leg over another leg and actually feeling that sensation of what I'm trying to reference to work with a walking device. So there could be so many different devices that spark and boost mobility, but the fact that the EXO allows the user to move and cover navigation, the distance, and that sensation, once you've lost it or it's been compromised, that gives the user a sense of confidence and also a sense of, you know what, I'm actually in control. So that also addresses the one question mark that Katie did not put, which is emotional. There's not a question mark in that part. And that is a huge, huge advantage and also experience that the end user is going to benefit out of.
Yes.
To what extent does the company AlterG play a role in what you're doing?
That's a hard question.
You're familiar with
Yes, yes. And AlterG just bought Tibion also.
it? Yeah.
So we haven't used their treadmills or anything. And it seems like a lot of the diagnoses that they're using are more of strength and rehab for like post-injury. So it hasn't been as much of an overlap. I haven't actually gotten that question, so I don't. Yeah, and Tibion is just the knee, so it doesn't usually overlap our population either. So, yeah. Okay, so in the interest of getting to a full demo, we'll move on. We'll come back to Q&A later. So now let's talk a bit about the design of an exoskeleton. So I'm going to ask you guys to help me out here. So I'm going to give you a few minutes, talk with somebody next to you, something like that. Think about what you guys would think is important in the design of an exoskeleton. What did we consider? What should we have considered? What did we totally miss while we were designing an exoskeleton? So I'll give you about 5 minutes. Talk amongst yourselves. This is so short because my class at St. Mary's was 2.5 hours. And I'm like,
You're such a natural in front of class. I'm loving it. It's like,
I know, I was looking at yeah. Well, I was ranting this morning because I went to a conference in Arizona Monday and Tuesday, and Kurt was at a different one in Arizona Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And we were looking at the programs from both conferences this morning, and every single technical speaker was a male. And it's not that women aren't in the field, it's just that they weren't the ones invited to speak. And okay. So who's got an idea? What do we got to look at when we build an exo? Anyone? Yeah.
Self-balancing.
Self-balancing. That would be a great feature. If you can come up with it, let me know. We'll talk. No, self-balancing is an absolutely important feature because falling is suboptimal. Let's just be honest. Falling is suboptimal. I will tell you that besides Rex, none of the exoskeletons out on the market right now are self-balancing. And it's interesting. If you look at Rex, and my picture didn't load, but go Google Rex when you leave the class. Rex is very wide. It's got very wide feet. It moves very slowly and does this very exaggerated step, and it's super balanced, and it's never going to fall.
I think we saw that at the VA.
Okay, but you don't, like, we're not super balanced, right? Like, if you come and shove me, I'm going to fall over. And so we have to play this balance between complete safety and natural walking. And we have to take into account the user's desire, right? Do they want to be completely stable but a robot, or do they want to walk, which is inherently unstable? We probably want something in between because the FDA is going to be a lot happier if we don't fall over. But, you know, there's a balance. But fantastic. And way to start out with a really tough one. Yes?
What happens if you do fall? How do you get up?
Fantastic question. Don't fall. Don't fall. That's a good reason why there's a handle back here and why the device is used in the hospital and in the rehab setting. Falling right now in most of the devices is not something that you particularly want to do. And recovery from a fall is not something we have completely developed, and so we really heavily rely on spotting and our physical therapists to be spotters to prevent the fall. And suboptimal, everyone knows it, but that's where we are right now. Yes?
I have a question along
Okay.
the lines of that. I saw in the first picture they have just kind of two poles that
Yeah,
walk.
yeah.
Is that for balance or is that for like weight support?
The crutches are used for balance and a little bit for weight shifting, but primarily balance and safety. A lot of it also for a lot of our complete spinal cord injury patients, that's going to be their feedback. There's no tactile feedback from the bottom of the feet. And so the crutches are kind of how you know where you are too. In our stroke patients, we'll use a cane because the single-handed, but we are still reliant on the spotter for balance. What else do we need to consider when building X's? Yeah.
That it's flexible enough for like different weights and body types.
Fantastic. So if I'm going to sell this device for $100,000 and it only fits one person, no one in their right mind will buy it, right? And so we have to make this adjustable. Let me get to, oh good, it was the first one. It's like I planned this. So EXO is fully adjustable, and like I said, I'm gonna talk about EXO. All of the other devices are too. Indigo actually comes in 3 sizes. ReWalk is adjustable in some form or fashion that's a little similar to this, but I don't know the details. But basically, all of the exoskeletons have to be adjustable. They have to be able to fit a wide range of patients, and they have to be quickly adjustable. Okay, because most of the time we're in a rehab setting. The therapists get 1 hour with their patient. That means that if they spend 30 minutes fiddling around with setting this thing up, that patient just lost out on half of their rehab session, and that's like not okay, okay? So we have to be able to adjust it quickly. EXO can adjust at the hip width, okay? This is the hip, the back section. Hip width to accommodate different widths of patients. And then we adjust the upper and lower leg, okay? They have markings so that we can easily see those and repeat them every time. So Fernanda is a size 0-6, so every time she comes in, I set up the exoskeleton to 0 and 6, and we're off and ready to go, okay? But adjusting it reliably is also important. So I have basically a tube in a tube, okay? I don't want that to move. Right? That would be bad. I don't want it to slip. I don't want that joint to start moving. So we use this handy dandy little tool. Anyone have any thoughts on what this might be? Why we use this? Any thoughts? It's an adjustment tool. It's got a bit. It's pretty sweet. So this is a torque wrench. Okay, if you could see it, it says 50 inch-pounds on top. Okay, I also have a special bit in it. It's one of those star bits that is like, you can find it, but it's not readily available, so you don't have it just like hanging out in your yard. That way, they only use this tool on it, because when I use a torque wrench, basically, I can come in here, put it in the bolt, and when it clicks, it will apply exactly 50 inch-pounds of torque. Okay, so I know that that bolt is exactly at the right tightness, okay? If I over tighten it, then I'm going to wear my machine, right? I'm going to either over compress the metal, cause fatigue, cause some damage to the device. If I under tighten it, then it could slip, the adjustments could move, and I could end up hurting my patient, okay? Neither of those I want to do, so we have engineers who figure out exactly the torque, and we buy these sweet torque wrenches, and they get calibrated every year, so we know they're right, and that's how we do the adjustments, okay? So we do them on the upper leg, the lower leg, the hip width. EXO GT also has some new features at the ankle, where we can actually adjust the center point of the ankle to help with that balance. So we're not self-balancing, but now, depending upon the person's center of mass, we can at least set where that center point is. And we can also adjust the spring rate of the ankle to make it either tighter or looser. So the ankle is passive. It's a passive center sprung ankle, but we can adjust where that spring center is and the spring rate. We can also adjust the hip abduction, so I can basically make my base of support wider or narrower as necessary. And this, of course, is going to change as I adjust the hip width. I will have to accommodate the feet to basically get that natural base of support. Okay? Okay, what else do I need to design? Yes?
Power storage?
Power storage, yeah. So if I put Fernanda on an extension cord, we're gonna have a problem, right? She's not gonna like that. Yeah, so one of the big things is how do we store power? EXO uses lithium-ion batteries that are replaceable, rechargeable. We just pop this off, put it on the charger, put the next set on, the rehab session continues. At the end, we switch them back, okay? But power density is, of course, always the name of the game. We want more power, longer, and lighter because this has to be carried by the user. We do a lot of things in the EXO to make it more efficient, to use less power, but we still have to carry any of that power that we need. What else do we need? Yes?
Natural movement.
Exactly. Natural movement is key. How we do that gait trajectory, how we move the hip and the ankle, or the hip and the knee in the right path, is really, really important. And actually, one of the things that we really spent a number of years on at EXO was how to adjust the step for where the body position is. And so our step trajectory is not the same every time. If you go and put us in a gait lab and track that hip and knee, it's going to look different every step. Now it's going to be within a normal range, but as the person leans more forward or more back, we're going to adjust that toe clearance to try to always get a natural height step and to not stub the toe. What else do we need? Yes?
Weight distribution of the device. I don't think you want too much weight high. It's going to be hard to balance.
Yeah, so it matters how the device is coupled to the person and how that weight is all supported. You don't want all of your weight at your ankle because you actually have to swing that through. And also how the weight is supported by the device. This is actually one of the big things that EXO actually made EXO a company. Was we were originally designing military devices to help soldiers carry their backpack load. So we built a robot that's now called Hulk, which Lockheed Martin now uses. It's HULC for Human Universal Load Carrier, but Hulk because we're roboticists and that's how we roll. So the structure of our device actually allows you to I can carry my own body weight with that device, and the load is actually transferred to the ground. So we use some of that same technology here so that the patient isn't feeling the load of the batteries in the backpack and stuff like that. So it's actually supporting itself. So that's an important consideration. What else? Yes?
You want it to be quiet, like especially if you're using it in a therapy setting, you want to be able to hear what the person is saying.
Yeah, it's really important that this actually is usable and not obnoxious. Once upon a time, they told me that they were testing lawnmower engines as power, but they had to do it outside. That really wasn't a good thing. I mean, they were doing military testing at the time, so it's a little better. But we actually have specifications on how loud it can be and how quiet. Yeah. What else? Anyone? Yes.
Has to be comfortable.
Comfortable, yay, good. Oh, not that one. Yay! So comfort is really, really important. And comfort plays directly into preventing injuries and pressure sores and things like that. EXO actually comes with a number of fit kit and padding options to ensure the comfort of our user. So we've got all of these adjustable Velcro straps. We should probably invest heavily in Velcro stock at this point with the amount of Velcro we use on this device, but it's fantastic for adjustability. We've got pads anywhere that a pressure point is going to hit the robot. Nice soft shoulder straps. Everything has to be wipeable. We have adjustable front sections. So this is a picture of our fit kit for the torso, front, And it comes in different sizes. Basically, if you don't need more fabric, then we're not going to put it there because it's hot and everything else, but we want to provide the support that you need. Lots of pads everywhere. We actually build all of our soft goods in-house. We employ somebody who just designs soft goods for the device. It's one of the critical components to keeping our patients safe and comfortable. I'm going to keep going so we don't run out of time. Donning and doffing, I'll show you with Fernanda. It's important. And then safety, okay? Safety is always the most important thing, right? If we can't keep our patients safe, then we have no business doing our job. So we always have hard stops on the brakes. The knee cannot overextend. It will not go past that point. But we can also set soft stops, which means I can go and tell the software, look, this person's joint doesn't really flex to 0. It only flexes to 5. So only go to 5, okay? Now, in the worst case scenario that the controller does something completely crazy, it's only going to go to 0 because there's a hard stop there. But I'm going to tell the robot, go to 5. Protect the person that way. We also have normally on brakes. What this means is even if you come up behind Fernanda and pull the batteries off of her machine, causing it to shut down and have no power, the brakes are going to come on because without power, they are on. And that means that at least her knees are supported and she can support her torso with her crutches or walker, and she will remain upright and safe and prevent that whole falling issue, which we definitely don't want to see. Okay, so fail-safe brakes and a lot of other fail-safe mechanisms are really important. We have a lot of redundant sensors on our device, so if 2 of the sensors don't agree, we're going to tell the device, hey, stop what you're doing, figure this out, because we're not real sure what's going on and we don't want to drive the joint to something that's not appropriate for that patient. Okay? There's a lot of safety mechanisms built into this, just to make sure that everything that we do protects our patient. Okay, so I'm going to show you donning and doffing. Fernanda will come and be our lovely model, and then we can answer any more questions. So, can I put the screen up to you? Yeah, because I'm going to use the wall because the chair has wheels. Okay, so Fernanda's ability to get into the device is of course really important. And so as she transfers from a wheelchair right now, if she were to just come and sit here, of course these braces are in the way, okay? So we have this don-doff mechanism which allows the legs to very unnaturally swing out and sit in a really inappropriate position. However, what this does is it gives Fernanda a large base where she can come in, comfortably sit, get adjusted, and then don the device.
It hasn't always been that I've been able to stand up and walk. So 20 years ago, with my injury from my neck down, I didn't have any movement. And when did we start this journey? 2010?
Yeah.
2010, I've been testing for exobiotics. And I was one of the original 6 test pilots in the program. And Katie, I would say, and Tim and Adam, we've pretty much kind of gone a lot of back and forth. The first year it was at least once a month, and they've developed. The EXO, I only come in when they have new software implementation. And there has been a great change from the first time actually donned onto this. the questions always still remain is, what am I going to benefit out of this? Is the question walking? Is the question something medical, or is it, there's still a lot of questions on my behalf as a user. So what I'm going to be sharing with you this afternoon is more of a subjective experience rather than the objective of what this is all about. In this class, as you know, that this is about the perspectives of a user. So all throughout the process, it is very, very indicative that you must participate a user throughout your development. Because this bridges the language of human design interaction versus machine adaptation. So within EXO and many other
Sorry.
test pilots, there are very many different profiles, body profiles. And as we are very unique in our interpretation, that is also being considered by the designers, engineers, and clinicians. So there's a lot of language going on. And I really do believe, and I think, and I'm going to push the fact that a user's perspective is a big part of developing. And learn how to ask questions in a form of using rather than the idea of making corrections. As an incomplete person in my diagnosis, after 20 years, I still continue to improve. So their language and interaction with Katie and the clinicians are always changing. Last week when I was at the lab, the shop, the new software that I got to try was a bit more stimulation on the knee. Okay? And just that little adjustment of allowing me to recognize that the machine is actually going to prompt the knee usage. As a user, and in my body, as I still continue to progress, that stimulation allowed me to prepare mentally and saying the knee's going to move now. Okay? And there is a lot of work with the user using this because we have to really tune in to what's going on and make all that coordination. It's not like a cakewalk that you just fire it on and off we go. There's a lot of interaction of the user's capability to interact and also get that feedback from the device. Let's see how we can use that in the next time we're going to be testing. Wait for my... Yeah, for my walk. Don't worry, I'm not going to shoot out the road.
Okay, so basically, before everyone came in, I adjusted all the settings. So now Fernandez is in, everything's locked, the legs are free. So she's gonna set the legs right under her so she can, stand up. She's gonna be using a walker. We also have forearm crutches or a cane, depending upon the person. I only brought a walker because it's easier. So now what we're going to do is stand. So I set all the settings in the controller so the robot now knows the mechanical settings and what to do. So we're going to go ahead and stand up. Ready? Okay. So it's stand, forward. Okay. Ready? Up. On.
Are we too close to that? Okay.
Yeah. Huh. Good. There we go. Ready? Okay. On. 1, 2, 3. Aw. So there's safety mechanisms that don't allow her to go if she's not leaning forward enough. And so we're gonna go ahead and do that. Okay. Okay. Lean forward. Hold for stand. And 1, 2, 3.
It's not worked all the way up. There you go. Having a soft stand-up actually helps integrate the joints. As if I was just to stand up forcefully, imagine that the user is not walking and standing at all times. So there's definitely a condition that needs to be met, that it's not abrupt. Okay?
You were walking.
Yeah. And,
This isn't separate, so we're gonna walk in for a step.
okay.
So now I'm gonna go ahead, we're gonna walk. As you can hear, every time we switch modes, there's an audio cue, which basically tells me, well, hey, the next time you hit a button, things are gonna move, which is a great reminder for me since, of course, I'm responsible for making sure that what? She doesn't fall, right? Okay. So we're gonna walk today in a mode that we call first step, and this is what we would normally use with a new user. And that basically means that the physical therapist, which I am not, but I'm playing one on TV today, is able to basically guide the patient, the user, and say, okay, we're ready for a right step, we're ready for a left step, and I'm gonna push the button every time that that's the case. In our more advanced modes, which Fernanda usually uses, but the device isn't set up and I could set up, but we don't have much time, then actually her position is going to guide that step, and it will take a step when she is in the correct position for the step.
Okay, before you touch upon, just by standing like this upright, it allows me to wiggle inside to place my body within the device. But a lot had to go through that to hold me up and still have this wiggle room, this aspect of it. So that small gesture of movement that I'm initiating is benefiting already, because I'm having to use the hip, everything, my shoulders. I wouldn't be able to do this without standing up on Exo on my own. Okay, all right, yep.
Right step.
Okay.
So we were practicing on the smooth floor at the office. So
Yep.
I'm gonna make this step height a little higher so we don't catch it. Can you move your feet together?
Okay. That it? This is what a test pilot does. You're at the mercy of everything. It's all right. I sometimes wonder why I'm doing this, but it's all good. Okay?
Right step. And like Fernanda said, our engagement with our test pilots and our users is incredibly important. And, I've been working with many of them for years, and we would not have gotten this far without their input. So, very, very important. You guys always include your end user.
Okay. One more. To the right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Right side.
So she's initiating.
I'm doing it right now. The programming on this device. But
Okay. And what's interesting about this is, the body is always going to be asymmetrical. Even though I'm recovering, it's still not the same. So with one leg weaker than the other, the machine, the device measures that weakness and adds on the power to complete it. And same thing on the other side. It feeds on, so it makes it a balanced movement. Okay? Ready?
if there's any questions while we're walking in squares, just shout them out. We'll listen.
And that isn't, as I'm walking, I'm not stiff. I'm able to engage my shoulders along with the hip movement with this, so I'm also working my posture. as I move along. Because most normally when people walk with walkers, the upper body stoop forward. And this allows me to also work on my posture as I move along, okay?
Are there different levels of input that you can allow the users to put in? I mean, like, how much are they doing? Can you rate?
Yeah, so what I'm showing right now is actually what we call our max assist mode. So this is really a tight position control, so I'm moving her like exactly where it needs to be. But we also have our variable assist mode and adaptive control. And so basically in anything variable assist, anything below max, I'm saying, okay, I want my trajectory to be within some envelope, and I can adjust that envelope. And I'm going to try to get her to do as much of that as she can and only compensate what it needs to. And the therapist can either use adaptive, which kind of holds it within a range, or use a fixed assist and say, no, you only get 20% today, and you better push through that, and things like that.
So like that includes weight and like initiation of movement?
Yes. Now, there are some things that we'll do for just safety, where we won't let them like, hang out too long without extension. We'll help with that and things like that, because you don't want flamingo standing. It's not good. But for the most part, yeah.
What percentage of the weight is supported by EXO? How much is the weight is she?
So the weight of the EXO is all through EXO. So it's not through Fernanda's shoulders.
Okay, so it's all going
It's
down,
all going
down the plate below.
through the foot plate. Her weight, however, is straight through all these straps. So she is supporting her own weight. So this is a really good balance, back to that bone density thing, back to that natural walking, where she is supporting her weight. The robot, however, she's not having to carry these batteries and things like that, and that's not imposing.
Can we pivot? Can we pivot to the front?
Yeah.
Okay, one more.
So our turn mode is, we have no alloplane motion. All of our motion is in the sagittal plane. So our turn pretty much usually goes here, pivot, here, pivot, here, pivot. Again, you know, not ideal, but that's where we are right now.
The device, if it's not powered on, is 50 pounds. But once it's powered on, I don't feel that 50 pounds. I don't carry that. I feel the pack behind me. And what I've benefited from this personally is that because I have a lot of movement that's going on in the backside, that's actually expanded my proprioception of what my back is doing. Now I'm able to connect my buttocks, my hamstrings, my calf, and the heels. Whereas before, even though I was standing up, there was not a slight connection at all in that. So that's another benefit that can be measured. But again, it's subjective because I'm still continually working on myself to gain as much as what I can possibly gain.
Okay, let's take a little break here for people who have to leave. Now's a good time. If you want to come up and get a closer look and talk to Fernanda.
And Katie?
Do that too. You still need to sign the sign-up form or the carpool form to do that. See you on Thursday.
Katie, where are you?
Come right here.
There's a couple of, I'm actually mentoring a Design for America club here on campus, and the team is up there, and I'm hoping that they would come down, because one of them, I'd like to, introduce them all.
Okay, cool.
Hi.
Hi, I wanted to actually talk to you about the company in general. I've been very fascinated by it forever, and I was wondering, do you know if there's any opportunities to get involved at all? Or
We usually do hire,
position?
yeah, we do hire summer interns, but I finished hiring for this year. But we probably will, I mean, right now there are no openings. We have senior.
Yeah.